today. I wanted to talk today, if it'll come up, about this topic that's near and dear to my heart. The name of this topic is called Walking Between the Worlds. I'm from the country. I'm from Sumter, South Carolina. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of it. But in Sumter, South Carolina, all the preachers love to hand out licenses. So I'm going to hand out temporary licenses this morning and ask you to help me teach on today. So if I ask you to repeat after me, it's not because we're in kindergarten, but that's just the tradition that I was brought up in. We kind of get the whole crowd involved. So if I ask you to repeat something, please just do me a favor and repeat it back to me. First of all, Walking Between the Worlds was a message that was given to me by Spirit based on this quote that I've been meditating on for the past month. And the quote goes something like this. It says, "I've lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons. I knocked at the door opens. I have been knocking from the inside." It's a quote written by Rumi, Sufi mystic. And Rumi wrote that quote during a time in which he dealt with some questions he had about the world. And I think all of us, based on the state of the economy, based on where we are in life, have questions about the world. You guys are seasoned. I'm sure you guys have seen spiritual traditions come and go, and you have way more experience in life and understanding about the mysteries than I do. But one of the things that Rumi dealt with was this idea of loss and meditating on how he can conceptualize God and conceptualize this divine reality and be a metaphysician, but also deal with the harsh realities of the world and bring what he saw in consciousness out into the physical reality. To bring it home, he had lost his teacher. The story goes that there were a group of students that followed him as well as his other teacher, and the students got jealous, and his teacher was killed. We don't know, according to certain scholars, whether or not that teacher was killed on purpose, out of revenge, or that teacher just died just through his travels, but we do know that Rumi endured a loss. And if anybody can remember about a time in their lives, and maybe right now where you've dealt with a loss of job, a loss of pension, a loss of economic surplus, or a loss of individual and friends in your life, as a metaphysician, it's hard. It's hard. Can anybody attest to that? Can anybody say amen to that? It's hard being a metaphysician and dealing with loss, because you feel that this knowledge and information that you have gives you power that other people don't have. As metaphysicians and as spiritual individuals and meditators, we feel that the energy that we have, that we emanate and dissect and receive from the cosmos, gives us the power to tread on scorpions, to borrow from Jesus, to walk on water. And sometimes when we walk on water, we step on the water and we fall in. Anybody stepped out on a metaphysical lake and fell in as opposed to walking on the water? I'll get to the core of my message, but that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to talk to you guys about the dichotomy between what we feel on the inside and what we experience on the outside, and what I've come to experience as my own personal reality and my own way of walking in between the worlds. In the late 1500s, a lover of life by the name of Giordano Bruno decided to take a peek behind the curtain. And what I mean behind the curtain, I mean behind the world of his day. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of Giordano Bruno, but he's what they call an evangelist of the cosmos. And his idea was that in addition to the Copernican model of the cosmos, that the planets and the sun didn't revolve around the earth, but that we revolved around the sun. Some call him a mystic, some call him an evangelist of the cosmos, and he was ahead of his time, but his life was cut short. He walked between the worlds of religious dogmatism and spiritual and intellectual freedom. And I'm not sure if anybody has ever felt trapped in their life by philosophies or by ideologies or by ideas about what they think they should have accomplished based on a certain age or based on where they are in life. But he was caught in between two major worlds: religious dogmatism, the world of the Catholic Church, which held control. And I have no problems with the Catholic Church, by the way. Just want to say that. Love Pope Francis. But there are two very important takeaways that I want you guys to get from his work that I'm briefly mentioning about that will correspond with my message today. Number one, the universe is infinite. Even though his life was cut short, and the place where he was martyred at, there's actually a huge statue of him in Rome, which goes to show you that the information that he possessed and the mysticism that allowed him to walk through the face of the earth was recognized at some point by those who even killed him, so to speak. But One of his ideas was that the universe is infinite. And number two, another one of his major points was that every distant star in its own right is a sun surrounded by its own planets that govern it. Now, what does this have to do with the world? So I'm going to tell you. I know this is supposed to be a lesson in cosmology, but I believe that if we can grasp these two major points, it can change the way we view our lives and the world around us. If we can understand the microcosm, right, we can understand the macrocosm. What is solar, right, is also cellular. Can you repeat that? What is solar is also cellular. Can you say that with me? What is solar is also cellular, right? As above, so below. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? All of the mystics have said this in so many different ways. And since the universe is infinite, we must be infinite as well, to a certain degree. So every star in the cosmos, which is a potential sun with its own gravity and planets that circle it, there's also a relationship to us. As metaphysicians, I would say that our souls are sons. Jesus was the S-O-N of God and also the S-U-N of God, with their own planes of consciousness. So our souls are individual sons with their own planets or planes of consciousness that encircle it. Well, what holds these planes of consciousness in place? They're held together by the gravity of our awareness. Our awareness holds the planets together. And if you study astrology, they'll tell you that each planet represents a certain personality type or a certain humor. Mercurial, Mercury, you know, and the planet Mars, the warrior spirit. So our souls and our awareness hold these planes of consciousness in place. And right now where we're sitting, even though there's an individual thing going on, everybody take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. There's one energy field, one thing happening here. We're individualized expressions of the whole, individual expressions of the cosmos, but together we come together to form a collective union, right? And if you are sensitive to the energy in the room, you can feel the collective energy. You can feel the individual energy coming forth from the person sitting next to you. You can feel their hurt sometimes. You can touch a person and sometimes feel pains in their body. Anybody ever experienced that? You ever put your hands on someone and felt a pain in your leg? You ever thought about a loved one and they call you over the cell phone, right? Phone starts ringing. So when we think of two worlds, right? Because I want to condense the information and just focus on two worlds, the inner and the outer. We normally think of one of them being out there, right? And another one being in here. Well, I want to tell you today that these worlds that I'm going to refer to all throughout this message coexist as one. We think of them as being two, but there's only one. Or should I say, there is a space where they overlap. There is a space where they meet, right? And this space where they meet isn't a huge space, right? This space is as small as an atom. Right now, even though there's individual space between us, on a microcosmic scale, if we were to take a microscope and take a look at what's going on, there's a huge enveloped arena of bacteria and atoms and protons and neutrons floating around in the atmosphere. So there's really no separation between you and I. Even though we feel individual, we feel the individual ego. Everybody following me? There's no separation between you and I, even though we feel that. There's one soul, one breath, one conscious awareness going on. This is what the mystic Bruno talked about, and this is what Jesus talked about, and Rumi, and all of the mystics that traverse the earth and the planet. This is what the Fillmores talked about. This consciousness, this awareness, right? Everybody take a deep breath with me, in through the nose, out through the mouth. This oversoul. Emerson called it the oversoul, right? In his attempt to unify this awareness about these two worlds that we live in order to show us that, watch this, even though there's an inner world and there's an outer world, we don't have to live divided, right? We don't have to live. The Bible says in the book of Genesis, everybody remember the story of the Garden of Eden, right? That there was two trees in the garden. What if I told you that there was one tree, but when we bought into duality, we begin to see the world in twos, good and evil, right and wrong, left and right, up and down. in God, there's only one, there's only unity. But when we accept the awareness that there is no unity, right, and we diversify ourselves, we separate ourselves, we project a separate self out, and we experience what I call the other. Everybody follow me? If you want to properly walk between the worlds, right, you want to really walk between the worlds and not get lost, not get caught up in the fray of dancing back and forth, of dancing in the cosmos. There are 4 questions that you should ask. And people that walk between the worlds, I really call them mystics. They walk between the worlds of non-matter and materiality. They walk between the worlds of consciousness and expression. They walk between the worlds of thought and agency. If you really want to be able to walk between the worlds and navigate between the worlds, there are 4 questions you should ask. Number 1, if I were to assume the role of God or divinity, creator or creatrix, however you choose to define it, in my life, what's the first thing that I would do as I'm walking between the worlds? If I were to assume the role of divinity in my life, what's the first thing that I would do? Number 2, and if that being the case, if my thoughts were prayers to myself or my higher self, what would I request? And number 3, if I lived in a world with no enemies, and by enemies I mean persons, principles, or circumstances, meaning that everything that I did not like, I could actually turn it around and make it work for my good. If I lived in that kind of world, what would be the quality of my life? And finally, if there were no principles upon which I could personally find to base or fix my life the way that I wanted it to be, do I have what it takes to assume the role of providence? There was a writer who wrote a book called Herriott, and the character, I believe it was Eugene. I may be mistaken, but Eugene asked the question to, the question was asked to Eugene, who was a character dealing with an existential crisis. He was battling 2 worlds. He was battling the inner world of emotions and the outer world of experiences because he was losing his father figure. And he was losing money because he was an attorney that couldn't seem to find a job. And he wanted to keep up with the appearances of what was going on in Paris during the late 1800s. And so Eugene was asked the question that if there were no principles upon which he could build his life, could he assume the role of providence? It's a very powerful question. I want to ask you that question today. If there are no principles upon which you could find to fix your current circumstance, could you assume the role of providence and make your life into what you want it to be? It's an interesting responsibility, right? Now, here's the controversial part. Hang on to your seats. I always say heresy is good for breakfast. I'm a bit of a heretic on the New Thought side and on the non-New Thought side. There are New Thought churches that sometimes want to kick me out because of the things I say. And they're my Anglican and Catholic friends who just look at me and roll their eyes. So I want to say this now, but I want to warn you. Providence was the last word that I said, but providence is an interesting word. Some spiritual teachings emphasize providence while others emphasize predestination. Free will is the bridge that we walk every day between the 2 worlds of providence and predestination. And what I mean by worlds, I mean the 2 capital W worlds of inner and outer experience. Providence in Latin is providere. Everybody say providere. See, speaking another language. Providere means to see or foresee. Pro meaning for, videre meaning vision. It means to foresee, to see in advance. Predestination in Latin is predestinare. Everybody say predestinare. It means to make firm or unchangeable before it happens. What if I were to tell you that everything that you see as you're walking between the worlds, you can't completely control or fix? That's the heresy. See, as a metaphysician, that's the part we struggle with, because we feel like this unlimited knowledge, this unlimited potential and capacity that we have, we should be able to, everybody in our family should be healed. There should be no cancer, right? There should be no HIV/AIDS. There should be no poverty, no lack. I'm a metaphysician. I shouldn't have money problems, right? Can you imagine that? I'm a metaphysician and I'm broke. What kind of metaphysics is that? Right? But free will is the bridge that we walk between providence, being able to see something in advance, and predestination, being able to make happen what we already saw happen. Right? So as a traveler between the worlds, it's your job, it's my job, it's everybody's job to carefully walk the bridge of free will, which allows us, if we're careful, to have the maximum amount of control possible in our lives, right? To make sure that what we actually predetermine when we want to use that energy, we want to make sure what we predetermine actually happens the way we saw it, because our universe has 3 cousins built into it. I'm sure you guys can agree with this, and you've seen it in your lives. Chance, chaos, and randomness. Everybody say chance, chaos, and randomness.
Chance, chaos, and randomness.
These are the 3 cousins built into our universe. Sometimes I feel like God and the angels and all of the divine energies on the atomic level are laughing at us, right? Because we are trying to fix everything, and then as soon as we put a pin here, we look, and the pen is on the floor. It's like, who did that, right? Right? Anybody ever experienced that? Or is it just me? Maybe I just had a crazy week. But these 3 cousins are built into the fabric of our universe, right? With such an intelligent design by this infinite awareness that's both in and all things. To quote Paul, who is supposedly a mystic and a Gnostic, a knower of the truth. In God we live, move, and have our being, right? And watch this. This God principle, particle, presence, principle, lives, moves, and have its being through us. Right? The 2 worlds. Or let me just borrow from Neville Goddard, who said that God became man, that man might become God. Powerful when you think about it. Can you say that with me? God became man, that man might become God. See, I feel so comfortable saying that around you guys, because Unity is a home where you can say stuff like that and you won't get shot. You know, it feels good to be around family. Right? So even though these 3 cousins are built into the fabric of the universe, right? At the end of the day, it's still okay. Why? Because we know that these 3 cousins are the spices of life. We just have to make sure our lives aren't too spicy. That's all. We just have to make sure there's not too much chaos, too much chance, and too much randomness built in. Everybody likes surprises, but we don't like those negative ones. To bring it home to science, because I know Mr. Bruno is knocking on the door saying, hey, you mentioned my name, but there's no science here. There's a principle called the chaos theory, right? Everybody seen the movie The Butterfly Effect? You seen it, right? According to the theory, and I'm speaking in layman's terms, I'm not a scientist. I'm an experiencer of life on that end, not a hardcore scientist, but the butterfly effect suggests that if a butterfly flaps its wings here, that there's a hurricane that's going to occur someplace on the other side of the planet, right? Chaos theory, right? On a metaphysical spectrum, we believe chaos theory to be the principle of chance, that the events in our lives are all connected somehow, and that through free will and through agency and through predetermination and foresight. Any visionaries here? Anybody has the gift of dreams? They see things at night. They feel impressions. Well, through what we see, we make choices, and those choices have a domino effect that cause other choices, right? Everybody, there are lots of movies out in the market today. I don't remember the specific movie, but I saw a movie one time where a guy was able to go back in time and change one thing in his life. I think he went to the bathroom instead of coming out of the shower and then getting dressed and then going straight to work. You know, he got hit by a car, so he was able to go back in time and then go to the bathroom, which prevented the car accident. Only the car accident didn't happen at 9 o'clock in the morning. The car accident happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the world we live in, right? Chaos theory, right? But that goes back to my further point that walking between the worlds doesn't give you the power to change everything, right? But it does give you more power than you would have had you not walked between the worlds, right? Because ignorance is not bliss, right? On the Christian side, I'm not beating up on Christians. I respect every path. There's a tale. There's a theology and a mindset, that we should try to get back to the garden stage, of life where we were able to walk around without any clothes on per se, being metaphorical, where things were given to us. But if you look at that from a psychological lens, that stage of euphoria or that stage of ignorance wasn't really bliss. It's sort of like a child in training wheels, right? Where everything was provided for them. They really stepped into their humanity when they made a mistake. No, don't make a mistake. My daughter's like, mistake. No, don't take that word. But they stepped into their humanity when they made a choice, right? Jesus said it this way. He said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And the great builders of Now Valley culture and spirituality said it like this: as above, so below. As within, so without. Inhale, exhale, right? The word kingdom literally means the dominion of the king, or the dome of the king. Where's your dome? Your dome. Dome. Your dome is your skull. That's the mountain. I'm telling you. I'm going to pull a Jim Carrey in a moment and start talking and walking backwards. The dome is the skull, right? Jesus was crucified where? On Golgotha Hill. Golgotha literally means, metaphysically, the place of the skull. Chew on that for a bit. Kabbalists, any Kabbalists here? Okay, good, I can say this. I've actually been in a service one time where I said something and somebody stood up. I disagree with that. I'm like, you're on tape. Like, grab the keys, let's go. They were bigger than me. And female. So Kabbalists and Kabbalistic traditions, they suggest that the skull upon which Jesus was crucified was the skull of Adam. Ooh, it's even more speculative. The burial place of the skull of Adam. Adam in Hebrew means earth being. You follow me? In Kemetic language, the language of those Nile Valley mystics, Adam is actually Atum, or Atum Ra, God of the sky, the sun, this principle. In science, Adam goes from Atum to Adam to Atom, A-T-O-M, right? What am I saying? At the place of our carnality, the threshold of humanity, right? The point at which our lives as we know it emerge, all the way down to the smartest particle in the universe, right? All the way down to that small, indivisible unit of existence, our ancestors saw that there was a bridge to another world, right? To another experience, another way of being. Barbara, I can't remember her last name. She's going to like shoot me in an article. I can see it. A wonderful mystic. She said it like this. I believe it's Barbara Marx Hubbard. She said that she predicted the human species evolving from Homo sapien to Homo universalis. Right? Beautiful poetic expression, talking about us graduating and moving to another way of being, a more universal consciousness. So our ancestors and even mystics today see that bridge, and our ancestors saw that bridge, which is a portal to another dimension of living, and every day we walk the bridge of free will to tie it all home in order to travel back and forth from one metaphorical side to the other, if we can say that there are sides. It's not always easy making that journey, and some of us experience a crucifixory point along the way. As we're walking along that bridge between the seen and unseen world, we feel like we're crucified along the way, because we get our hopes up when we see things for a reality that we don't often experience in our personal lives, trying to make reality actuality. But if we can learn to let go of our eagerness, right, and our desire to make things happen immediately, and start to see the bigger picture and how the story of our lives unfold from the lens of our infinite awareness, right? Maybe one day we'll wake up and stop walking between the worlds and start building worlds around Herriott Hotel.